Hey everybody, this is Everyday Commentary, and this is going to be an overview of my knife collection as it stands at the beginning of October 2020. And so I wanted to go through and talk about stuff that's in my collection right now and why it's there, stuff that's sort of in between being in my collection and stuff that's probably going to be cycled out after I'm finished with the reviews. So there are a couple of things on here that are new, and I'm going to pull those out. And those three knives are relatively new. They're all knives made in 2020. This is the Pena X Series Zulu Spear. This is the Sharp by Designs Micro Evo version 2, and this is the TRM Nerd. I've reviewed all of these knives. The reviews are up on the channel, or the overviews are up on the channel, and the reviews are on the website. I have not decided which one of these knives is going to make the cut into the permanent collection. I really do like all of these knives, and if it wasn't for the fact that I have so many knives, I would probably just keep them all. But I really can't feasibly keep all of the knives because there's just too many. So these are ones that are sort of on the bubble. They're, review sample. They're knives I kept after the reviews were finished because I really like them. But I don't know exactly which ones are going to stay. So those knives are all sort of on the bubble. But the rest of the knives that I'm going to show you, these knives are probably never going to go anywhere for a whole host of reasons. And we'll get to them. So the first knife is, and by the way, I have a Gerstner chest. It is a Gerstner International chest. This is one of the drawers. You can just slide out the drawers. They're on little dado grooves. And it works perfectly for storing stuff, and it looks gorgeous. But one of the advantages is if you need to do something, you can take it out and bring the tray with you. Green felt lining, and mine is white oak. They do think they have them in maple. I don't know if they have the Gerstner International in maple. The reason I went with the Gerstner International is because the actual domestically produced Gerstner chests are outrageously expensive. I think the one that I have is like $400, and had I bought it as a domestic version, if I bought the domestic version instead of the international version, I think it was another $1,000. So I like my knives. I like storing them in nice things, but I don't think I need something that nice. So the first knife up is the Dragonfly 2 in ZDP 189. These are aftermarket scales made by WA Nolte03, who is an Instagram user. He contacted me out of the blue and said, hey, I know you really like this knife. Your website got me into knives, so I'm going to send you these scales. Tell me if you like them. I think they are amazing. They are absolutely perfect. I did oil them. They came dry, and I oiled them. And the end result is my favorite knife is made even better. Micarta scales on the Dragonfly is something that definitely should come from the factory because as it stands right now, this is a great knife made better with awesome scales. And it actually didn't add anything into the weight. There's no liners on these scales. It's really just 3 pieces of micarta. The little piece here that holds the backspace, that you put the backspacer in, and then the 2 scales. All of the screws are the same screws. But it's not worth taking apart because it all works. So that's the Spyderco Dragonfly. This is probably my most carried knife. This is probably my favorite knife. Though all of these are really good knives. That one is never going anywhere. This is the A.G. Russell Gold G10 version of the Canal Street Cutlery boys knife. This is the sole traditional knife in my collection, and I love traditional knives, but I don't like any traditional knife I've ever had better than this one. As you can see, it's a small version of a Barlow. It has a negative angle on the blade, and it gives you just a really great cutting angle. This knife works well. It does a lot of different things. The one thing that kind of drives me crazy is it smudges like nothing else. I mean, this is like one of those matte finishes on cars. It just is a fingerprint magnet. But this knife is no longer being made. It was a special run at Canal Street Cutlery, and A.G. Russell got an extra small batch, and the end result is this is a pretty hard to find knife. And I absolutely love it. The fit and finish on this thing is insane for a production knife. The next knife in the collection is the Garrett Bull Small Shimori. This is the first small Shimori he made, and this is also the first knife that he made with his deep carry over-the-top integrated pocket clip. I love this knife. It has a hand-rub finish, M390 blade. Mine runs on Teflon, not on Teflon, on bronze washers, so it may not be as snappy as the bearing ones, but man, does it give you a good punch when you finally flip it open. I missed that one. Let me see if I can do it again. There you go. Front flipping action on this thing is incredible. This is like the front flipper. I love this knife. It's perfect size. This one is a 2.75 inch blade. It also happens to be the knife that he made after I reviewed the original Shimori and said I would like these changes if I was going to say this is a perfect knife. So he's done all of those things. This is about as close as you can get to a perfect knife. It is only one of 3 customs in my collection. I've basically stopped looking for customs. I want one custom I currently do not have, which is the Tom Crine Splinter, but I'm not really interested in custom knives as they do not offer a value proposition I think makes sense. The next knife is an out-of-production Strider. This is the Strider PTCC. It has no pocket clip. It has contoured handles. It has contoured titanium on one side and contoured brown G10 on the other side. The PT is the smallest of the Strider knives, the smallest of the Strider folders. This knife has a 2.75 inch blade. But the reason this knife is in my collection, the reason I bought it and then traded it and then went out and got another one, is because of how good it is in the handle. This is a really complex handle shape, but this is the handle shape I think works best for a folding knife. I really, really, really like this handle. This is just an absolutely astounding, great pocket knife. This is really, really good. This one has S30V blade steel. They did just do a run of the regular PTs with titanium and S30V, and it was $500. I do not think this is a $500 knife. This is a $300 knife, maybe a $400 knife, not a $500 knife. I do think that if Strider decided he wanted to like update this knife and put bearings in it and get a newer steel, it would be good. But as a sort of rehash of an S30V knife from 10 years ago, I don't know if it's worth it. I do like that knife. It will stay in the collection. I got rid of one and then had a hard time finding another. This knife is the Spyderco Chaparral and Refure Noble. I got this knife for Father's Day. My boys and my wife got it for me. It is a fantastic knife. It's super, super thin. It works really well in the hand. And I love the Refure Noble. It does kind of look like seaweed, but I just feel like this is a really great little gentleman's knife and a very, very good sized pocket knife overall. Spyderco always makes great knives, but this is one of my favorites. I really do want to get the Bird's Eye Maple version that was just announced, as I love woodworking, and Bird's Eye Maple is beautiful. So we'll see. If I add one, that one is not going anywhere. The next knife in the collection is this knife. This is a Leaf Storm number 9. It's a custom knife made by Kevin Wilkins. I had been watching for this knife to come up, this particular setup, normal blade shape, S30V steel, titanium handles. I had waited for years, and it finally did, and I snagged it, and I'm really happy. This is a great custom knife. And the reason why I find custom knives so unapproachable is because most of the time you're not getting anything in terms of a unique design. It's basically just a regular design that they fancy up. Every once in a while, somebody will do something really incredible that's different. But by and large, it's basically, a titanium frame lock flipper with mokutai on it. And that doesn't really turn my crank. This knife is totally different, right? Like it's a custom knife with what is a sliding bar lock, an axis lock. It's an unusual shape. It's much better than the original Leaf Storm, by the way, in the hand. It's just a better knife. It has this unusual milling pattern. There's a lot of different things about this knife that make it better than the original Spyderco collaboration, but also different from a regular custom knife. It's not a titanium frame lock flipper. And Wilkins doesn't make a ton of knives. So it's a very, very good and functional knife, but it's also a really interesting knife. It is really thick. This is definitely the heaviest knife in my collection. The next knife is the Hinderer Mini Dauntless. This is the Dauntless I've always wanted. I bought and reviewed a Dauntless that was too big. It was a great knife, but it was too big. And I've watched the limited edition Dauntlesses come and go. I bought the Fellholter. That was an excellent knife. It was just a little too squared off for me. When Hinderer and Triple Out Design announced this one, I was super stoked. I ended up buying an XM18 right before I bought this knife. I got this knife in. I had them both side by side. There's no question this is a better knife. This includes the tri-way pivot, which I don't really care about, but it's there. It is really just a great knife in the hand. It is a very good overall folder. It looks nice. I love the fullers. I love the blade shape. In my opinion, this is the best knife Tad has ever made, and this is also the best knife Hinderer has ever made. So that is a pretty high watermark because I like both of those companies, and so it was a foregone conclusion that when they finally produced a small batch run of the Dauntless small or the mini Dauntless that I would own one, and now I do, and it is not going anywhere. The next knife that's in my permanent collection is the Spyderco Spidey Chef. As you can see, I use this knife a lot. It's something that has a lot of wear on it. It is an excellent knife. It is one of the best ergonomic knives I've ever seen. It slices like a demon and it resists rust, and it's just an overall great knife. This is a first generation one. They have changed the pivot screws and the hardware to make them fully stain resistant. I think they're now titanium or some rust resistant metal. This is not. That being said, I've carried this for 3 or 4 years in and around the ocean. No problems whatsoever. It is absolutely fine. It still is snappy. The lockup is great. If you're looking for a big knife, and you're thinking, I really like the Shaman, or, I really like the Paramilitary too. You are wrong. This is the knife you should be looking for. This is a great knife. And unlike those other knives with their big, fat, thick, stouty blades, or their really terrible ergonomics because they have the compression lock right where you put your finger, this knife just works. If you're looking for a big EDC knife, as opposed to a knife you can drive into a tree, this should be your knife, because this is a great knife. The other knife that's in the collection that's not going to go anywhere is this knife. This is the Gerber Emerson Mini A100, and I've had this reprofiled so that it does not have a chisel grind. I am probably going to get a replacement clip, and I'm going to look for some nice scales if I can find some. This is just an absolutely perfect, all-around knife. It's not, probably not big enough that you would want to go in a knife fight with it, but, you don't want to get in a knife fight in general. But this knife is an excellent knife. It's super simple, super basic. It just always works. This is a later generation model because you can see it does not have the backspacer. It has standoffs. But this is an excellent blade. I really like it. The only thing that bothered me was the chisel grind on the cutting bevel, but as you can see, I got rid of that. So those are the knives that I have in my permanent collection that are not in cases. The last two are in cases, one of which just because it came with the case. This is the Nundy, the Chris Reeve Nundy, and it is a Gen 1 Nundy, so that it has the easy to use, one hand open nail nick. And this one has box elder burl on the handle. I did buy a replacement clip. Unfortunately, the replacement clip does not work. This is the old style clip, which I think is just fine. It just doesn't it lacks that like super fancy Chris Reeve logo right over the pivot screw. Overall, this is one of the best knives in my collection. If I'm like going out someplace fancy, I have no problem carrying this knife because God, it's so good. And the fact that they have the Echidna with its nail neck means I think they should bring this nail neck back. This one is an older one. I bought it new. It was a new old stock, and it has an S30V blade as opposed to the new ones that have S35 VN. But I would much rather have the old nail nick with S30V than the new nail nick and S35 VN. The difference in terms of the steel isn't that great, but the difference in terms of use is tremendous. This is just an excellent knife. There's a really good argument that this is the best production knife ever made. It is super fancy, but it's not so fancy that you can't do things with it. It's sturdy, it will last, it's not gigantic. It's thin, it's thinner than the Sebenza, it cuts like a demon. It has a lot of interesting design features like the inlays and the easy to use nail neck. It is a fantastic knife, a well-designed knife. And I just can't think of any reason not to own one of these. I mean, even if you're not like a super fancy dude and you just get like some basic inlay, you know, it's still a really good pocket knife. I actually think this is a better pocket knife than the Sebenza for a whole host of reasons. Sebenza is a great knife, but this knife is what the Sebenza will grow up to be. It has this really elegant sort of look and feel to it, but it's still sturdy enough to do everyday tasks. You know, I've prepared food with this and it's fine. So the last knife in my collection is a custom knife. It is a custom knife that was made by Scott Sabi and it was engraved by Ray Cover. This is the Scott Sabi Swift with Ray Cover engraving. This is the banknote engraving, and it has koa wood. As you can see, this is a self-lock. The self-lock is super duper elegant because there's no locking device anywhere. The only thing that you do is you push this little tab up and the knife unlocks. And that's it. As you can see, the pivot is hidden. There are 3 pins here and 3 pins here. The back spacer is completely smooth, flush, and almost invisible. This has a little bit of fingerprints on it. I'm going to clean that off when we're done here. But it has a mirror finish on CPM 154 blade steel, which I chose. I could have chosen any blade steel, but I like CPM 154. The one thing is, it is a mirror finished blade, and so it is like as bad as this guy is in terms of being this is like 100 times worse. Just an absolutely gorgeous knife. As you can see, it has a lot of features that I like, such as no rear exposed hang. It's great. This is one hell of a knife. I don't know if Scott Sabi is making knives anymore, and I don't know if this knife is still being produced, but it is absolutely great. I'm just trying to wipe this off. This is the only knife that I don't regularly use. I use everything else I've shown here. I'm not afraid to do anything with it. I don't think I've ever done food prep with this knife. And there's a reason. I mean, yeah, it's a safe queen. I'm just going to concede that it's a safe queen. I don't know. I don't know if I have room for more than one, but you know, like if I got a Michael Walker, I wouldn't get rid of this, and I probably wouldn't use it to chop up cinder blocks. But this is a really beautiful, beautiful knife, and I like it a lot. So that's a video overview of my collection, my knife collection, circa 2020. Thanks.